All right, it's that time where it gets a little less technical and it starts to get a little bit, excuse me, a little more artsy. So we're gonna crack out these markers. This is the lightest marker that you have. Mine is a number 3, and it's an inexpensive marker. It's an Artist Loft that I believe I got from Michaels. I'm not sure exactly where I got it from, but I think the brand is Artist Loft. You can use Copics. I think Prismacolor has markers as well. So there's a lot of companies that make these type of markers. Ultimately, for us, it's just to be able to have different levels of value so that we can build out later on when we're doing really quick and rapid value. But this is a chance that when you're using this really light marker, it gives you an opportunity to quickly sketch out and draw ideas that you're not 100% committed and married to. To a certain degree, this is almost like, it's almost like, I want to say cheating, but it's not cheating. So this is not true 2-point, this is not true 1-point, this is not true 3-point. It's kind of an amalgamation of all those ideas. Just means that it's a mashup of all those ideas. So we're still trying to kind of sort of visualize that we're drawing to some vanishing points that are somewhere off in the distance. And what we're trying to do as much as we possibly can is we're just trying to give these things some degree of dimension. We're trying to draw them at different angles. We're rotating them. We're changing the scale. We're making some bigger, some smaller. We're making some overlap. And ultimately the goal is to be able to draw them small, medium, large at varying degrees. That's all it is. And it's just an exercise of being able to draw them at different angles from imagination or from your mind, from your brain. You don't have to look at anything. You don't need to see anything. As you can see, I typically draw one plane in its entirety and then I draw the other planes in relationship to that. I'm still using my arm as much as I possibly can to make these lines and drawing them fairly confidently and fairly directly. In this stage, it doesn't matter if they're really accurate because you're going to draw back into them anyway. If you want, you can draw through, but most of the time what I'll do is I'll make the little dot, and the dot gives me the aim. And so once I get to the point where my objects are overlapping, I typically don't draw through them, mostly because it will get pretty confusing if you have a lot of lines that are overlapping. You can see in that instance I avoided drawing that to the same corner because I don't want to create tangents. So I'm still trying to avoid making these things touch each other in a way to where they are aligned with each other. I am pushing the idea of overlap as much as I possibly can. If you happen to make some sort of tangent, it is not the end of the world. But over time, you do want to be able to error check yourself so that you're not creating tangents. And tangents is just when all of the lines share the similar position, so it'll start to flatten out the depth and space of your objects or your drawings. So you're trying as much as possible to always, as much as you can within reason, to be able to make sure. And you can see there I was drawing to the vanishing points and trying to visualize how to draw through the other object. And so I still, as much as possible, in my brain, in my mind, wow, that was highly unnecessary. In my mind, I'm trying as much as possible to visualize that there's vanishing points out there somewhere in the distance for all of these objects. They're not going to be going to the exact same vanishing points, so don't make this the thought process of that I'm drawing to a specific vanishing point. Just try to visualize that the two angles on the top, the two angles on the other side are converging somewhere. And the more you can do that, the easier this exercise will be. And you can see that I went back up towards the top to sort of fill in that space because it was looking really dull and really kind of bland. This is not really a super sort of design exercise where you're trying to make this like really like immaculate cube tumble. It's more or less just an exercise in you being able to effectively practice drawing cubes at varying scales so that you can practice the idea of creating depth, that you can practice the concept of working small, medium, large, as well as now adding the addition of your marker. So now we're using 3 tools. We have our marker, we have our Prismacolor, and we have our pen. So in many ways, we've pretty much went through almost all of the tools that we're going to be using throughout the entirety of the semester. And so now we're just developing the mastery of said tools. If you don't practice this a lot, this skill will somewhat diminish. So it's something you have to practice all the time. You can practice these things whenever. You don't have to use a pen. You don't have to use a Prismacolor. You can do this with regular pencil. You have to do the media for this class. But in general, when you're drawing your sketchbook and you don't have anything in particular that you want to draw, these exercises are really good because to a certain degree they're kind of mindless, meaning that you're not concerned about the content, you're not concerned about the storytelling, you're not concerned about the character design, you're not concerned about the design for the most part, other than you're designing these cubes of varying scales and of varying angles. But it will help you in the long run to get better at drawing effectively. And then if you start doing your anime, when you do the effect for like explosion, I forgot what they call them, the cubes when explosions happen, when the ground erupts, like effectively that's what they're drawing, is they're drawing like just these cubes that separate and the progression of those cubes moving in space. So these kind of exercises, these are the things that just help you to become better at drawing things at different angles and to do them confidently. Even if your perspective is not immaculate, that you can do these and do them rapidly, and you get better at them every time you do them. So the more you practice this, the better your skill will be at this. And again, we'll do this both Prismacolor and we'll do this with pen. I did half and half. Don't do half and half, but I did half and half just to show you that even if you lay in your drawings with the marker first and then you draw with Prismacolor on top of it, that the marker almost disappears. Same thing is true with your pen, and it's again about line weight and pressure. So when we draw back into this, all we're really trying to do is just shore up our line weights, make sure we've got those heavy, medium, and in this case the markers are light lines. So all we're really going back and doing is our heavy and medium. So that was the only purpose of, and I didn't want to do a completely new drawing of Prismacolor because it would have just been redundant. But I wanted to show you that the bottom part is in Prismacolor, so you can see I'm just going back in and shoring up the line weight. And in terms of technique and skill set, that the skill set and the technique is almost exactly the same. The only difference is that you have to switch to a heavier line weight, and you do have to pet the lines a little bit more. If you've never heard the term pet the line, it just means you're drawing over the line multiple times to give it more line weight because your first pass didn't really hit it. Oftentimes when you're drawing these, your line weights will not be accurate, or they won't be the right line weight the first time, so you might have to hit the lines a few times to give them line weight. That's part of why we're practicing repetitive line drawing over and over again, so you can overlap lines and they won't be all over the place, but they'll sit on top of each other and just give them more weight.